Welcome back. We all know our government has ballooned into a beast far beyond what our framers ever envisioned. Every year, the budget explodes beyond our means to pay it, and bureaucratic paychecks grow fatter, and the buckles of restraint are undone like a belt after Thanksgiving dinner. But now, under a Biden White House, the government bloat has never been bigger, populated with jobs we aren't even sure are real jobs.
Every year in this country, government seems to grow. In 2023, there's now over 23 million government employees in the United States. It's like 10% of the population now employed by the government.
Joining us now is the man whose job it is to daily expose these inconvenient truths about the Biden administration. Adam Andrzejewski, CEO and founder of Open the Books. Adam, welcome to the program.
Well, it's great to be here, Chanel. Thanks for having me on.
Adam, your latest investigation finds that the Biden White House has the largest payroll in the history of presidential administrations. Give us a sense, Adam, of how big that is exactly.
So our auditors at openthebooks.com, we went back 5 decades, 50 years, back to 1971. We looked at the head counts of White House payroll, and it's never been higher in the modern presidential era. Joe Biden has a White House payroll that now exceeds 500 employees. That's never happened before in the last 5 decades. His payroll headcount is actually 565. It costs the American taxpayer $61 million a year. And Chanel, let's put that in context, versus the 4th year of the Trump administration. There's 152 more White House Biden staffers than Trump at the same time. For crying out loud, during the 4th year of the Obama administration in the first term, there's 100 extra staffers on the Biden crew.
It seems that there's no turning back, though, when you've got a bureaucracy, even White House staffers, when they are established, when jobs are created within the government, it seems like there's never going back from the brink. You never shrink. If you were to break this up, they just get relocated. So do you see this ever shrinking?
Well, the White House payroll is a leading indicator of a president's penchant to grow the size, scope, and power of government. Trump, he actually cut the White House payroll. He saved the American taxpayer almost $30 million versus Obama in a 4-year period. Until the pandemic, he had shrank the size of the federal bureaucracy as well. Now, Biden's the opposite story. It's an all-time high on headcount on White House payroll, and it's been a leading indicator of his ability to grow government. For the first time, we're over a total headcount in the 123 executive agencies of 1.5 million federal bureaucrats. That's up sharply from the Trump years.
So what's so funny is that if you were to break down these staffers too, I remember when the Biden administration first started, and you had a series of economists look at who was entering into this administration, and they found that the vast majority, it was a shocking number, it was something like 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 of these White House staffers did not have private sector experience. So not only do you pair this fact that you've got more people working at the White House inside this bureaucracy than ever before, but very few of them seem to have private sector experience.
Well, and if you look at the most highly compensated White House staffers, like the top 10, four out of the top 10 are lawyers. Then the entire administration, the payroll's lawyered up. They've got 51 lawyers on staff, costing the American taxpayer $7 million. But then there's some other highly compensated employees as well. And some of these should be fired, like the senior advisor on immigration is in the top 10 top paid on the White House staff. And there's been 10 million illegal entrants crash the border during the Biden years. You also have one of the most highly compensated staffers. They're the senior advisor on racial economic justice. They're there to push equity. That's a socialist neo-Marxist concept of equal outcomes. It is the exact opposite of competitive capitalism. And so that person there is not growing the economy. They're actually putting up impediments to slow the economy.
Well, Marxism certainly takes a lot of hand labor, shall we say. Do you believe this is really President Biden's decision, or does the deep state, for lack of a better word, decide to grow themselves? Whose decision is it to make this lugubrious size?
Well, I think there you have to look to the president's wife, the first lady, Dr. Jill Biden. So we took a look at her staff headcount, and it's the highest since Michelle Obama had back in 2009. And Chanel, you remember those years. Michelle Obama got all kinds of grief, all kinds of criticism for a bloated staff for the first lady, with social secretaries, press secretaries. Well, Jill Biden has all of that, but she also has some things we've never seen before. She has a senior advisor on foreign policy, a senior advisor on the economy, the workforce, a senior advisor on healthcare. These are presidential issues. It begs the question of how much influence she has with her husband, the president. She also has 4 extra senior advisors on public policy. She does have her travel advisors or schedulers. Chanel, we found that she has advisors advising her senior advisors. She has advisors for her advisors.
Sorry. So having watched some of Jill Biden's activities over the last few years, I find that extraordinary. What isn't surprising, though, is it does make sense that it looks like a committee is making a decision on her fashion choices. So that might explain. You may have solved a mystery just now. I don't know if you're a movie guy, but in one of the Marvel films, you have a main villain group called Hydra. And they have this slogan, cut off one head, another will grow in its place. This goes back to my prior question. Again, if this administration vacates the White House, do you see all of these positions just disappearing with them? Is this really a situation where roles are established by the administration that enters that White House?
Yeah, 100%. I see huge swaths of this White House payroll disappearing overnight if there's a change in leadership. For example, Donald Trump, he swore off czars that came out of the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and these are the special issue-oriented folks, the advisors, and Trump swore that off. The Biden administration actually has 106 czars on payroll today. He's renamed them, he's rebranded them as special assistants, but all of those, like on gender, Biden has a national and international gender czar, 4 climate czars, both national and international. He's got 7 staffers for $1 million at taxpayer cost that are still on pandemic preparedness, and the pandemic's been over, according to Joe Biden, for at least a year and a half.
This is amazing work, great stuff out of Open the Books. I often wonder, riding around D.C., you look at all these big buildings that are all housing one federal agency after another. And I've wondered if we were to decentralize Washington, D.C., if we started splitting up the bureaucracy and spreading them across the country, would this solve a lot of this government bloat that we're watching, or would it aggravate it?
So I think it's a great idea. I think, get these agencies out of the Beltway, put them with regular Americans across the country. I think your decision-making, your quality of employee would get a lot better on behalf of taxpayers and the American people. Right now, you've got far less building utilization in the Beltway, less than 50% of office space is being used. And so there's a lot of bloat everywhere. We need somebody to come in there on a forensic basis and cut the spending, cut the waste.
Adam Andrzejewski from Open the Books, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chanel.